This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and Upsnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio. Welcome to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. Joan and Janet are subtle energy empaths who navigate consciousness. Their passion is to support you in your evolution. As consciousness, we are all one. One mind, one heart, free of all limitations. Experience this reality with us and discover how it can make a difference in your daily living. Join us in a state of grace as we explore, with warmth and humor, this thing we call life. Now, here are Joan Newcomb and Janet Barrett.
Welcome to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. We're your co-hosts, Joan Newcomb coming to you from Tacoma, Washington, and my partner Janet Barrett's coming to you from Portland, Oregon.
Hello, everyone. How nice to be with you today.
We have a lot of fun and excitement going on here. And this week we have a guest, Johanna Derbolowsky, and she is the best-selling author of The Transformation Promise. Johanna is a metaphysical teacher and coach of healing and transformation, including consciousness stem cell therapy work. Her private sessions are spirit-guided and client-specific. In addition to her healing work, she's an ordained minister with the International Metaphysical Ministry. I'm being psychic here. A spiritual counselor, certified matrix energetics practitioner, clinical hypnotherapist, and Reiki master. And Johanna has worked for more than 20 years in the field of metaphysics while continuously advancing her studies to best serve her clients. And she has a private practice in California and teaches seminars throughout the U.S. and Europe. And her website is quantumheartfield.com. And we're going to bring her on in just a minute, but we're going to do some announcements of our own. And Janet, would you like to start that off?
Sure. Hello, everyone. This week, we're glad to have our guest. You can reach us and all the things that this show encompasses at our website, www.consciousconversationswithjoanandjanet.com. And there you can listen to the podcast, all these shows we've done for the last couple of years and all the great guests we've had. And you'll find out more about our blogs. Both Joan and I write during the week about what we're noticing and what goes on in our groups and our meetups. We both provide meetups. And we have those, Joan up in the Puget Sound area of Washington and myself here in Portland, Oregon. And about sessions. Both she and I do sessions over Skype, phone, whatever the method might be. We work with clients all the time. So you can also find our Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube links for social media there. And what else do we want to tell them about there?
Let me see. Well, we can also say about what meetups are coming up. I have one that is coming up on the 20th. That is going to be in Queen Anne at this moment. And then I'm also doing a telesummit on May 29th. So folks that aren't in the Puget Sound area and can't see me directly, I have this great telesummit coming up, and I'm going to be talking about accessing unseen help. So there's more information about that on our website, Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet.
And you'll find out about my new groups via Zoom video conferencing, the Fuzzy Photons Playground groups that I'm offering on Thursdays here. So if you can't be local to us, you can call in via Zoom, and it's live, interactive. We're having a wonderful time. They are at 10 a.m. Pacific and 6 p.m. Pacific, and you can find out the information there at the website or contact me directly at janetb@janetandbeyond.com. So there's lots of reasons to be excited about life, guys, and I know a lot of things are going out there. So get a hold of Joan, Janet, and Johanna. All of us are here to help us all enjoy life. And I think that's the predominant thing we notice.
All right. Well, we just have a couple of minutes before we go to a commercial break. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to bring Johanna on so that we can say hi and introduce what the topic that Jan and I were considering for you. So welcome to our show, Johanna. I'm so glad you are here.
Thank you. I am truly honored to be there with you.
Well, I think we've all met at one time in the past, probably at a Matrix Energetics seminar, Johanna. But you're in the Santa Barbara area or someplace there?
Yeah, right now I'm in Santa Barbara.
Oh, it's such a beautiful place, that's for sure. So Joan and I thought we'd want to talk with you about, you have such a strong metaphysical background as both she and I do, and here we all are into consciousness and what that transition and what that means these days. How do you combine all that together?
I think the most important part is that you know who you are and where you are, at the present moment, so that you can be in the present moment and then you are in your highest consciousness.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, how I relate to this, Johanna, and is I'm also a trained metaphysical minister, and one of my huge breakthroughs was when I started with matrix energetics. And I discovered then I went through this huge consciousness shift, and all my old techniques were like Newtonian physics, and the consciousness techniques were like quantum physics. So as I was reading your information and tuning into you, I was wondering whether or not you had a similar experience. So how is your experience with blending the old and the new nowadays?
Well, I think I started with the new as a child. I grew up in a very metaphysical background. And then I went to, see what the fuss is about the old. And it didn't really work for me that well. It was very rigid. The results were slow. And so I went back to the metaphysical and the more quantum physics that, it's always moving particles. I called my book The Transformation Promise because transformation is a promise. It's always going to happen, and we can never stay at the same moment. And
no matter how we try and hold on, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
So instead of wasting all our energy trying to hold on to what we can't hold on to, we might as well utilize our energy to use that transformation in a direction that we actually want to go into.
Wow. Was that the most empowering thing that could have been said? That you can use it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And my original training was all about grounding to the center of the earth. And that was, nowadays I feel like that was like dial-up, and you can't access today's cosmic internet using dial-up. There's a whole wireless way of being able to be connected and centered, while all this change is happening. And I realize I'm now talking into the time we need to be taking a commercial break. So I want to let folks know that you're listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet, and that we have to take a quick break, but we are talking with Johanna Derbolowsky, The Transformation Promise, and we'll talk more when we come right back.
Would you like a fresh approach to the challenges you are dealing with? Take a journey into your enlightenment with Janet Barrett. Janet is a subtle energies empath, accessing the field of potential with warmth, humor, and support. She will help you to hear what your inner voice is saying. She will share with you how to appreciate who you are now and offer you new ways to understand and transform your issues. Reach her at www.janetandbeyond.com. That's janetandbeyond.com. Again, janetandbeyond.com. Transformation is possible. You can enjoy new outcomes in your current experiences. They can happen in the blink of an eye. Is your soul calling you to do something more meaningful with your life? Do you feel crazy for wanting to quit your secure job? Perhaps you are waiting until you retire to do what you love. Maybe you are too daunted to follow your dream. If any of these match your life, then Joan Newcomb's Purpose and Passion Coaching Program is just for you. In just 12 weeks, you will discover who you essentially are and why you are here. Learn to live as your greater self and navigate with conscious mastery. Go to joan-newcomb.com. That's joan-newcomb.com for all of her coaching programs.
You are listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. To reach our program, please send questions and comments to consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. That's consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. Now, back to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet.
Welcome back. You're listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. I'm your host, Joan, along here with Janet, and we are talking with Johanna Derbolowsky, the Transformation Promise.
Oh, so nice to all be together. And listeners, we're having fun because we're all in the same time zone apparently, but we're all playing with time here and being
time is malleable.
With you. Totally malleable. And I think that part of that is what we want to just take a moment, because with Johanna here, we've really got a strong field going. And she uses the term quantum heart field. I use the term heart-centered awareness. And we're all talking, no matter the label, the same information, that consciousness is present. And so just take a moment, just notice how connected we all are, and just enjoy the next half hour or so with us, because I think we're going to go many places, and sometimes we're going to say something and sometimes we won't, because I think there's a lot that we're allowing to be real for us, malleable reality. So how's that for you, Johanna?
Sounds perfect to me.
There you go. Well, Joan, what kind of questions you want to start off with, you think?
Well, I was trying to remember what we touched base with before the commercial break, but I think that was so many parallel universes ago, I can't remember now. And the thing that I had jotted down was something you had said, Janet, which was about the interplay of consciousness and metaphysics and new.
Yeah. I mean, we've all got this strong background as being metaphysical, as is the way, because the word consciousness wasn't used when we were all young, I guess, and that sets up our framework for how we experience the world, and then we come into this level of consciousness technologies and this new forefront of quantum physics and mechanics and science and all that. And it really seems to have broadened and opened up the old references that we held for the metaphysical. And it puts things in an active state, which is what I really like, because a lot of the trainings were, this is the way it is and this is it. And I like the openness that happens. How about for you, Johanna? Do you notice that?
Well, of course I noticed that. The old way is very rigid. And everything is moving faster. Time is speeding up. So we have to move faster too, in the way that we want to transform and change things.
And so how does that play for you? How in your own personal experience, what are you noticing with that?
In my own personal experience, as I get older, which I really enjoy.
Well, how many people say that? See, and I agree with you. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I truly love that. There's less responsibility to be somebody else.
Yes. Okay.
And, I've noticed that the moment is really all I have, because I don't know what's happening tomorrow.
Right.
We don't know what's happening in 5 minutes. So make the best of what's happening right now. And the other thing I think that is important to me is I can't change the world and I can't change anybody else. So I work on myself and try to be the best me I can be in every single moment. And
I love that.
At times that's good and at times that's not so good, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. What I find is being in the present moment is essential, because you kind of need to pivot at any moment with all the changes that are happening. And so trying to stay rigid or hold on to the previous moment is extraordinarily uncomfortable. And the present moment is just incredibly expansive. And it's funny, you were talking about, I just had a birthday, so I just turned 59, and it's kind of interesting how the insides seem to be getting younger and younger, as the wrinkles and flab grow on the outside. And it's a really fun game when you sort of stay in non-resistance and in the present moment.
Yeah, and well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
She's entitled to the non-existent flab and wrinkles that she talks about.
Yes, I'm a Taurus. Anyway.
Well, I think your point is well taken, Johanna. You mentioned the rigidness of some of the disciplines that we've been used, because it's been about, when you look at where these powers or these observations that become systems generate from, I always had a challenge with being the clairvoyant and the clairaudient and all those clairs and saints and whatever they all are, and using that in a way that was helpful, that didn't hurt myself, didn't whatever. And you meet where there's a rigidness in a system that says this is this. And what I've so appreciated about consciousness trainings and technologies was that, and what it is that it makes that malleable. And it makes it, just because it seems that way and someone said it was that, does not mean that's what it is for me. Now, I'm not going to say that about the next guy, because I can only go by what my awareness of how I hold that information. And it's been about the congruency of getting what I hear with what my own truth is in that.
Yeah, and that our own truth is the only truth we have anyway.
Right, and it's elusive and changes all the time too. So then you got to get over yourself, in that sense. We so invested, and we realize, because if you're in the moment, what is the content of that moment might not be the same in a different moment, and that's what I mean about that.
Also, when you stay in the moment, you don't have so much fear of the non-existent future.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which, really is a big rope around the neck to have that dangling always next to you. So when you're in the moment, you don't worry about that. And when you don't worry about the future, you can actually look at what's going on in the moment. So things are always going to happen. Some things are going to make us happy. Some things are going to make us sad or angry. But then at that moment, we have a choice. We can look at it and we can say, okay, how am I going to respond to that? Is that telling me something? Should I change myself? Should I go into a new direction? Or is it simply something that's happening and can I let it go? So those are all response choices that we have in the moment. And that is a much better way to move towards the future.
And the future isn't set in stone, so when you're in the present moment, you can step into an unfolding future and have it reorganize any way that you as consciousness want it.
Yeah, the future is not existent. So.
Well,
I love that.
Well, yeah, that's interesting because, when I was young and invested in the outside telling me who I was on the inside, there was always, it's your destiny, it's fate. That was used a lot. And I didn't actually like that, because at that point it was probably more about control or resistance or something. But I come to appreciate how that's a mindset. And that's the way that energy is being harnessed, that pattern is being built, that if nothing changes, sure, that is my fate, that is my destiny, you can go that way with it. But you don't have to play that game, because that's a game as much as anything else is in life.
No, and the fact that nothing changes is not, always changes.
Yeah, you're just not set to notice that it changes, that's another mindset.
Probably free to experience the same problems in a different setting over and over again, but at least the setting will change. It will not be the exact same.
Right. And that allows for the next opportunity to be able to play with that pattern and have a different awareness in it and have awareness And I think that's key. Yeah.
That's why I think that the question is really good to when something happens in your life, whether it's good or bad, to see what is that telling me? Where do I want to go with this? How do I want to respond to that? For example, something happens at somebody's work that is unpleasant. Then the question would be, should I leave this work and go somewhere else? Or is this telling me that I need to change myself? Or, a number of things that could be the reason for that. But the change is always happening within first. So if we just say, okay, I hate this, I'm going somewhere else, most likely we're experiencing the same thing over again in a different setting.
Right, because wherever you go, there you are.
Well, I think your point is, though, that people, that would be their last choice, is to change themselves. Right? We haven't made that historically easy to do. Right. And the three of us are very well attuned in the realization that, okay, sometimes you just got to get out of your own way and let things be different. And you have to come to that moment with yourself. And that it not be such a place of resistance, that's really a place of health and wholeness. And because we think too small to begin with, and we get ourselves into these limited positions of how we want to experience the world. And so change for a lot of people is very threatening. And what you're inviting them to do is look first and go, okay, is this an opportunity? And to frame it in that, don't you think?
Yeah. And of course, we're creatures of habit. We don't want things to change. Because we're more afraid of something new than we are of something bad, which is very unfortunate. And if you really become aware of that, then maybe you realize that being in a bad situation is worse than moving into an unknown. Everything can always turn worse at any moment or better at any moment.
Or a variable of in-betweenness, right? There's a myriad of possibilities there.
Yes, so possibilities are everywhere and change is going to happen. So once we become friends with the change, then we have options.
One of the things that I notice is depends on what my perspective is. So when I am coming from like my personality, my body, and I'm coming from, so to speak, like the player or the avatar in the game, the character in the game, then I'm going to be very resistant to change, and I'm going to want everything to be along familiar patterns, and I want to be, even if it's uncomfortable, I want that to be familiar. And when I can shift my perspective to being consciousness, which is then infinitely aware of all the infinite possibilities, then it becomes easy, and this all becomes like a game that you can play. So so it becomes more, you're in alignment, or you're in agreement with the changes that are going on.
Yeah. And here in America, we very protected from big changes.
Well, we used to be, maybe.
Well, we still are. I mean, I grew up in Europe, and my parents were in World War II. They went through that. They lost everything. I grew up that this can happen, and life goes on.
Right.
What else happens? When I talk to my kids now, they don't really see that concept. I mean, they see it other places, but they don't. It's not part of their experience yet, that things come and go. And it's not important what happens around you in the world. It's important how you are in it and how you respond to it.
Do you think that life experience that you had, well, it obviously led you to this point. Was there one particular event, or was it just this growing awareness that things weren't quite fitting, and at some point they did?
Well, the awareness that things weren't fitting, was my earliest memories. I just thought that something was definitely flawed here. And I used to talk to my grandmother about it, that, things are not working the way things are supposed to work in this life here.
And was she reassuring, or was she otherwise?
Well, she said, oh, you should take that up with God. And I said, well, how do I do that? And she said, oh, just be quiet and wait till he answers. So I would sit for, 2-3 minutes and nobody answered and I got even more upset.
And does he answer now? What is it that you, how is it that you embrace? Because we say the word consciousness and what is your comfortability, or how have you defined that for yourself?
Well, now I think the answer is within. The answer is within you. That is, how do you navigate through this? And, how do you get out of it? By not being harmful to others as much as possible. And, or as much as possible in that moment, and to just be the best we can do. And not dwell on when you're not super good, because you can't be perfect all the time. I mean, maybe you can, but I can't.
No, I gave that up last week.
So, you slip up, you move on, because even though, well, actually, when people say, oh, I regret this and this and this in my life, I don't really regret anything in my life, because I know in every given situation, if I was in that situation again, I would make the same choice. Because with all the contributing factors, that was the best choice to make. So if I was in the same situation now, I'm a different person. I would probably make a different choice.
I want to touch base on something that you said, because I relate to it. And also I suspect that people who listen to this show would also relate to it. But, you're talking about growing up in Europe and also, having this feeling that, something isn't right. This doesn't fit in or whatever. And, I was born in Berlin and I spent 2/3 of my childhood in Europe as well. So, what I have noticed over years is that there are individuals who are born who are light bringers, is my story about it. And we tend to not be the majority, because the majority tend to be people who are stabilizers, or they're there to continue family patterns. And it's much more noticeable in Europe, that has history of, thousands of years. And so those of us that pop in as light bringers are going to feel like, what planet did we come from, or not fitting in. And, I also feel like, Johanna, if you come from a situation that's like Europe, you're a bridge to the new. For that experience of the old and the historic gives you the opportunity to have a bridge, to be the bridge to the new for people who are brand new to all of this. Does that resonate? Does that make sense to you?
I definitely left because I felt too caged in the old. So that was a big part of moving away, just all the old buildings. And I found that somewhat oppressive, although now when I go back, I think it's really beautiful. So,
well, I haven't. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's something rigid about that. Definitely in the mentality too. This is how we've always done it. This is how it is. And, especially in California, it's much more, okay, well, you do what you do best in the best way you can, and it's possible.
I would think that atmosphere, that part of what component in that was just the deep, deep sense of loss of what was in Europe at that time. And with one, let's get over it. We're all empathic and we're all sensitive. And for you, that, for anyone who's can resonate on that level, that, be the bridge to a new. That's the old, you can feel the collapse of the old, which is really gone. It's reinvented itself. And Europe is full of cities that have rebuilt and rebuilt and rebuilt on themselves, in different generations. I have other friends that are from Europe, and, that's their, gift really is that they've been able to take that and transmute that energy, transform it into what is now. And you realize the value of what is now because you appreciate what was. You know.
I'm going to jump in there, Janet, because you said something that about, you know, we're all psychic or we're all empathic and just get over it. And so that always jars me, because one of the things that's happening on the planet is there's like an increased light and increased consciousness, and people are becoming more sensitive. So they might not know that they're empathic. So it's not a just get over it, because that's kind of an invalidating or dismissing thing. As opposed to it's acknowledging that they're aware and they're sensitive, and they may not be feeling their feelings, but they might be feeling the collective.
Well, it's not in terms of a judgment. It's in terms of being present, right? That's what we're talking about. It's about being present. Yes, that happened, and this is now, and it's that bridging. So for me, in the people that I deal with and what I notice about my interactions with others, and that's because that's my interaction with others, is that it's opening us up. And whatever level or stratosphere we're in that, is that what Johanna is talking about is people that are coming to new awareness of themselves. The awareness has always been there, but they just haven't been open to that awareness. And so it's getting past that humanity, that sense of self that says, okay, this is the way I thought it was. And it's like, no, that's just what you thought it was. So, yeah, I don't. So what do you notice, Johanna? What do you notice about all your students and clients all over the world that are the common factors? Do you recognize some of those commonalities?
I recognize in the young generations that, first of all, what you said before was the being an empath and not knowing about it. So I've noticed that is a big issue with a lot of an emotional, well, you know, teenagers are emotional anyway, but I think there's an increased sense of emotional because they're more empathic young people that really don't know where is all this coming from and how am I going to find myself in that. So for all those people, there should really be more out there for the younger generations, I think, to work with energy and to learn that energy is around you and goes through you. And so that would be one of my wishes, because I think that those generations are a little bit lost. And that's my observation working. Mm-hmm. And I was also surprised when I wrote that book. I wrote it for just regular adults, but most feedback that I've gotten was from kids 17 to like 22.
Wow,
interesting.
That really thought the idea of how to consciously transform and how to find your own sense of direction they were really craving that.
How old are your kids?
20 and 25.
Oh, yeah, mine are 27 and 31, so just like slightly in there. But what I'm noticing with the younger generation is a lot of them are just, they're already born with intercellular, but so what it sounds like is that your book was validating their experience that their older generation parents and teachers couldn't.
Yeah, it also gave them some tools to manage. Tools to manage through your everyday emotional tidal waves.
Do you think that's what the last 30, 40 years have been about? We seem to get some. In the 60s, it was about speaking out and doing things different and all that. And then we go into this time of where things become important and how many things you have, and are we now into this place where, okay, let's go back to the interior work and see what's going on in there?
Well, I'm hoping that that's what's going on. I don't really see that yet. I find that there's a lot of frustration and giving up in the younger generations. You guys gave us a planet that's really pretty badly treated, and everything is too expensive. I mean, especially if you're talking about this country. I mean, you go to college, you're going to be devastated financially.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm finding that there's a resignation in a lot of people already. So what I like to do is inspire them and say, this is not that meaningful. All these mountains in front of you are not that meaningful, because what's really going on is on the inside, and what's going on the inside is going to determine how you're going to walk around the mountain, over the mountain, or through the mountain if you have to. So bring the focus back inside and see the possibilities inside.
Yeah, that's very empowering, because, you can't really change, fix, or manipulate what's going on in the hologram anyway, so to speak. And if you put all your focus on the stuff that's happening to you, you're going to feel even more powerless. But when you can tune into the essence of who you are, inside you, then suddenly you have the ability to make changes. So that's wonderful advice for anyone.
When you make the change on the inside, the outside, changes so fast that's really, especially with young people that have less doubts and experience that things are not going to work out yet. So let's say if a situation happens that I'm unhappy with, and I can immediately go inside and see, okay, what is the situation telling me? And what do I need to work on myself? And then you step outside the house, and all of a sudden the situation is totally different. I find it really happens that fast all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's what's important, because we may say that we can't change the world, and that's a mindset, and that the cost of living is high, and these are things that have morphic field energy around them. And the reason that we say, and you're bringing so much awareness to, is that you go back inside, you reorganize, you look at what's there, and then as you become that, as you are that, the outside world starts to reflect it, because that's what you're presenting, and that's the inspiration that you express. And in that's where the power to change the world happens, that you become so congruent within yourself, and you express that energy outward, and there's your neighbor, or there's the stranger, and all of a sudden you have tuned into that collective oneness, and now there's more, and then there's more, and pretty soon things change, because that's the way dynamics do work. Right? So it's not me sitting here trying to change something. It's me sitting here being something, and where that takes me.
Yeah. It always reflects the universe always reflects your picture of reality.
Reality. Don't you just love that?
So, Johanna, we've got a couple minutes before we need to go to a break here, and I'm just wondering what you would like to let our listeners know. What's it? We'll be telling them about your appearances coming up right after the break. But what's the message that you would like our listeners to have before we complete our conversation here?
Well, I think I have to get back to what I said at the beginning. With everything that's presented in your life, go within and ask, what am I here in this situation? Who am I? What's important? What emotions come up? What everything comes up? And change yourself. Allow yourself to use all your energy that you formerly used to worry about the mistakes you made in the past and the fear of what's going to happen in the future, and harness all that enormous power and bring it into the moment and say, okay, today this is going on. I'm feeling this way. What can I do with this right here, right now?
And with your events coming up, is that what you're going to be exploring, or is that going to be something different?
The event that I have coming up in Seattle is called Tools for Transformation, and I'm going to go through different tools on how to consciously transform, so how to consciously go from where you are now into a new direction or into the direction you want to go in, whether it is, a physical thing or a spiritual thing, and to become aware of your GPS system, which is gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great way to look at GPS.
That's how I describe it.
And then forgiveness is letting go of the past, and then truly knowing who you are, this, divine energy being, which is the way to the future or to what is to come.
Thank you so much. That is great. So we'll be mentioning this again on the other side of the break, but I'll say it here because it was brought up. Johanna is going to be in Seattle next Wednesday at the East West Bookshop. So that's Wednesday, May 16th from 7 to 9 p.m. And she will be talking specifically about tools for transformation. So we got to take a really quick break here. Just want to remind folks that you're listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet, and we are talking with Johanna Derbolowsky and the Transformation Promise when we come right back.
Would you like a fresh approach to the challenges you are dealing with? Take a journey into your enlightenment with Janet Barrett. Janet is a subtle energies empath, accessing the field of potential with warmth, humor, and support. She will help you to hear what your inner voice is saying. She will share with you how to appreciate who you are now and offer you new ways to understand and transform your issues. Reach her at www.janetandbeyond.com. That's janetandbeyond.com. Again, janetandbeyond.com. Transformation is possible. You can enjoy new outcomes in your current experiences. They can happen in the blink of an eye. Is your soul calling you to do something more meaningful with your life? Do you feel crazy for wanting to quit your secure job? Perhaps you are waiting until you retire to do what you love. Maybe you are too daunted to follow your dream. If any of these match your life, then Joan Newcomb's Purpose and Passion Coaching Program is just for you. In just 12 weeks, you will discover who you essentially are and why you are here. Learn to live as your greater self and navigate with conscious mastery. Go to joan-newcomb.com. That's joan-newcomb.com for all of her coaching programs.
You are listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. To reach our program, please send questions and comments to consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. That's consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. Now, back to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet.
Welcome back. You're listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. I'm your host, Joan, coming to you from Tacoma, Washington, and my co-host Portland. My co-host Janet is coming to you from Portland and Oregon, and then we also have a guest, Johanna Derbolowsky, and you're coming from Santa Barbara, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So I wanted to remind folks that we've been talking with you, Johanna, and you are the best-selling author of The Transformation Promise. You are a metaphysical teacher and coach of healing and transformation, including consciousness stem cell therapy work. So we'd probably love to have you back on to tell more about that. I would love to have asked questions about that. And you have private sessions that are spirit-guided and client-specific. And you're also an International Metaphysical Minister, a spiritual counselor, a certified matrix energetics practitioner, clinical hypnotherapist, and Reiki master with 20 years plus in the field of metaphysics. And your private practice is in California, but you teach seminars and have clients all around the world. So folks, her website is quantumheartfield.com. And I also wanted to remind folks that you're going to be in Seattle next week. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm going to be at the East West Bookstore in Seattle on May 16th, 7 p.m. And the workshop is called Tools for Transformation, which deals with how to consciously transform into a direction instead of just being tossed around by events to transform. So you can learn how you can consciously use tools to move into the direction you want to go in.
And then your book, The Transformation Promise, it's available on Amazon. You want to tell folks about that real quick?
Yeah, that is available on Amazon and also at the East West Bookstore and other selected bookstores. And that's a self-help book to really go get to know yourself and really know where you want to go, what you want to do with your life, and how to expand into a more conscious life.
Very cool. And then also you're available for private sessions and you're also speaking in seminars. And that's on your website, quantumheartfield.com.
That's all on my website. I have another workshop coming up in Boise on May 19th, but that's also on my website.
Very cool. Well, this show goes out on the internet to people all around the world. So if you've got anything else coming up in Europe, they're probably listening as well.
Well, that will be in the fall. I'm going to be in New York, and then in next May I'll be in Germany.
The world is small these days, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's kind of nice.
My private sessions are I only work over the phone and long distance because it takes the personal limitations out of it, I find.
Yeah. Oh, well, we've certainly enjoyed having you with us, Johanna.
It's been absolutely wonderful. I truly enjoyed it, and it's been an honor to be invited on the show.
Thank you. As time gets expansive here, but it does have a limit, doesn't it?
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll have to have you come back and tell us about your consciousness stem cell therapy work.
That sounds pretty.
I'd love to. Thank you.
Yeah. And good luck. Have a good time. Everybody go see her up there next week.
All right. Well, I want to remind folks that if you like Janet and I, we have a website, Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet, and there you can listen to all our past podcasts. You can also read the blogs that I and Janet write. We also have meetups around the Puget Sound and in Portland. Janet and I both do sessions, long distance, like Johanna. We do them by phone, Zoom, and Skype. And then our social media. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. I also have a Facebook, and YouTube, and I also have a YouTube channel that I post my videos on our site. And then Janet, do you want to tell folks about your groups real quick?
Yeah, we have the Fuzzy Photon Playground groups. And so we're, like Johanna says, it's about consciousness, it's about hearing yourself, and you want to meet with other people, live interactive, small groups. It's like being here, and we have a great time. And those are on Thursdays at 10 a.m. Pacific and 6 p.m. Pacific via Zoom video conferencing. So you can contact me through the website, or you can contact me directly at janetb@janetandbeyond.com and get all that info. But
and I want to remind folks that I'm actually going to be in University Place on May 20th. So that is, I can't remember if it's a Saturday or Sunday. It's Sunday. It's Sunday.
It's all about time.
Yeah. There is no time or space. It's all happening right now. I've already done the workshop, but it happens to be coming up on May the 20th. It's a meetup at the University Place Library next to Whole Foods in the Tacoma area here. And I'm also going to be on a telesummit on May the 29th. It's the Transformation Show Telesummit. It's going to be at 4 p.m. Pacific. And I'm going to be talking about accessing unseen help. So there's an upgraded way of working with unseen help to improve your life, health, and business. So you can find more information about that on our website, consciousconversationswithjoanandjanet.com.
Well, it's interesting to notice the energy, Joan. You can really kind of feel a wave, and it's a very gentle wave, I'm noticing, with time and space here. So we want to thank Johanna for sharing that with us. And she may be in Santa Barbara, but she's all over the coast. We're moving it.
Well, and what I'm reflecting on is how that it's not so gentle going on outside in the news, and there's, volcanic eruptions happening everywhere, and these huge shifts. There's been big cracks in the earth, not only like Hawaii, but Peru and in Croatia and all around the world. So there's a lot of expansion happening, but what was really lovely today was just all of us connecting as consciousness and showing how gentle that transformation can actually be when we're in this space.
Well, and it's about inviting change. And that's kind of a different setup for a lot of people, to invite change in their life, to invite flow. And I think everybody wants it. It's just how we've got it set up. And that makes a big difference, in our inner world activities and how we express from there. So all the tools, we can all use the tools.
Yes. And all the tools in our toolkit. And right. The other thing I kind of find is it helps to be spontaneous, improvisational, and playfully curious.
Yeah. Playfully curious.
So I want to remind folks, maybe not remind the folks, but let folks know is that there is no time or space as consciousness. So regardless of when you're listening to this, you have actually helped participate, create the morphic field of our experience here today. And we so appreciate you listening and joining us in this creation.
Thank you, everyone. It's been lovely to be with you. And no matter when you're listening, we appreciate, because that is the now. And so all this is going on and you can feel it, and just embrace that.
You've been listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet, and tune in next week, same time, same channels.
You've been listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. And thanks so much for helping to co-create the show, no matter if you're listening live or on demand. You energetically contribute to our collective experience. Joan and Janet love to hear from you and invite you to email your comments and ideas for them to explore each week. Contact them at consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. Tune in next week for another great show, and until then, keep enjoying this wonderful adventure we call life.